This session is about the tech stack. So as publishers, we use a whole bunch of technology to make our sites accessible to vendors and to sell things and to get those advertisers to get their ads to our viewers. So how I think we're going to structure this tonight is I'm going to run down my stack. My name is Scott Brodbeck. I am the publisher of Arrow Now and Reston Now in Northern Virginia, and I also sell advertising with a partner who runs a site in DC called Popville. And then Kelly, who publishes sites in Nashville, is going to talk a little bit about hers. And these two gentlemen make some great technology products, do some great things with technology, and they'll weigh in as well. And then we'll do Q&A after. So. First off, the fundamental thing you need to have a local website is, of course, a website and a server. And so there are a number of ways that you all probably know to possibly host a site or things that you can use as a content management system. I'm going to talk about what I'm using. So we're now in the cloud. We use Google Cloud to host our site. There are some advantages to that over having a dedicated server or a shared server in terms of performance. Our server, we're paying, it's rather expensive for us. We're paying almost $1,000 a month, but we're also serving about 3.5 million page views a month via Google Cloud. WordPress is our content management system. Most of you are probably using WordPress. Some of you might be using some different things, but David here is a WordPress developer, and I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about why WordPress is, what the advantages are over some of the other CMSs, and why you might choose some of the others as well.
WordPress is who's on WordPress. Okay, so it's very popular. I think a third or more of the active sites on the internet are currently on WordPress. It's an open source CMS platform. So a typical publisher, once their site's up and running, they're going to find it's rather easy to add posts and editorial content, manage ad placements. It's also, I shouldn't say this as a WordPress developer, it's rather easy to find a WordPress developer to help you manage the site.
No, it's not.
Not a good one.
Yeah.
We have one here.
So that makes it very popular. It's just the fact that it's so user-friendly. The typical publisher can get up and running rather quickly with a WordPress site using a theme or a template, and there's a low barrier to entry with costs involved until you really start scaling.
Yeah. So we really like WordPress, and we do have some custom development that's been done for us, and we're on it. Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm going to correct you. WordPress actually has currently over 60% of the market share, not 100. So.
Wow. Sweet.
60%.
That's better for me.
Yeah. And me.
And then the other thing that we use in terms of our web presence that, in my humble opinion, everybody should be using is Cloudflare. Cloudflare is basically a method by which people get to your server that protects it from some malicious activity, and also does some caching so that you don't have to have quite as powerful of a server to serve all your traffic. It's really cheap, and it makes a whole lot of sense. So definitely look into Cloudflare if you are not on it right now. In terms of, so I've broken this down into different categories. In terms of our editorial tools, I probably don't have to tell you much about the Adobe Creative Suite. We use that primarily for Photoshop, for photo editing, and for Audition, for doing our editing our podcasts. Audition is their audio editing software. I like that the Creative Suite now lets you have a monthly plan. So rather than having to buy software for a big upfront fee and upgrade it every once in a while, you now pay a monthly fee that's very predictable, and you can assign users to it. So if you have multiple employees, they can each have an account. And there are different price levels. If someone needs a full suite with the video editing and all the other things, that's one price level. If you just need Photoshop, that's another. Asana is our my new favorite thing. Asana is what you're seeing on the screen right now. It's it's sort of like a project task management software, cloud-based, and it was developed by one of the Facebook founders. And so we use it not only for editorial, but we also use it for our sales side. It's you can see it as a really fancy to-do list, but it's got a lot of functionality and a lot of integrations you can use. So I will show you what we use it for on the editorial side. We do all of our story planning for the week in Asana using an Asana project. So we break down by the hour what we're publishing, and then with it, you can't really see all of this, but we can put notes, we can put files, we can put links, and you can see changes to it. We can assign our reporters to stories. If you have recurring features, you can make them recurring. We really like it for the editorial side, and it does wonders on our for organization on our sales side as well. The last editorial tool I'll mention is Libsyn. Libsyn is the service we use for podcasts, to host podcasts. It's actually podcasting is pretty easy when it gets down to it, and you just need a service to host it and host the RSS feed that you then push out to Apple and to Google Play. And Libsyn does that very well and is fairly inexpensive. Audience engagement is our next stack. So we, of course, like all of you, use Facebook and Twitter. We do use a service called Hootsuite to manage that. I like it because it allows us to have a little more control. Since we have employees, we can grant employees access to multiple social accounts without having to give out a whole bunch of passwords. It is a bit expensive, but we use it for that access control function. And it's especially useful if you need to manage social accounts across a number of different types of social platforms. So if you have multiple sites, multiple platforms, it streamlines that a bit. MailChimp is what we use for email newsletters. We really like MailChimp. We send out a daily email newsletter using their RSS to email function, so it just automatically generates an email newsletter based on the stories you publish that day. We also recently implemented breaking news alerts via an RSS pull using MailChimp, which is pretty cool. Although I got one complaint. We sent out our first breaking news alert today, and I got one complaint, someone saying that 2 rabid raccoons in Arlington did not constitute breaking news. Discuss is our commenting platform. What I like about Discuss is that it has very robust moderation tools. I'm on a Discuss publisher platform, and they've actually implemented a bunch of improvements over the past few months. If you have a high traffic WordPress site and you're just using the standard WordPress comments, that actually causes you to use more server capacity, because the server database has to refresh those comments quite frequently, and especially if you get a lot of comments, it could end up eating performance. Discuss does all that for you, takes the load off your server, and it has real-time updates for someone in the comments section. They can see when new comments are posted, so I like Discuss.
Does it have a toxicity? Kind of like
It does. It has they're implementing automatic moderation functions that use algorithms to figure out if a comment is toxic or not, and if it's toxic, it can pre-moderate it, make it so that you have to approve it before it goes out.
One other nice thing about Discuss and even Facebook comments is that when someone comments, obviously, typically if someone's going to comment, sometimes they're angry, right? And if they get a notification that someone replied to their comment, they're coming right back. So the point is, you're getting that person back, and sometimes that just feeds on itself depending on the topic. So you really build the page views. So, nice
yeah.
thing.
My favorite moderation.
Can you compare that to Facebook comments like that about why you use Discuss instead of Facebook comments?
I don't use Facebook because I don't want to give out too much of my business to Facebook, basically. I think it's too many eggs in one basket.
Right.
So Discuss is a sort of a third-party tool, and They started actually charging money for some of the advanced features, so hopefully they can remain independent, and I think interests are more aligned that way. Yes.
Do you find, we use Discuss, do you find, I find that there's still a tremendous amount of spam.
Some spam does get through. I wish that was better, but it's. You can also set up filters sometimes that kind of look for certain things.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we have to go back and look at those again, because I'm just shocked at how much gets through.
Yeah, it remains a problem. My favorite Discuss moderation feature, by the way, is they now let you put commenters in a timeout as if they're kindergartners, which is awesome. And then they also have a shadow ban, which means that you ban someone and no one can see their posts, but they don't know it because they see their own posts.
Yeah.
So if you have persistent trolls who tend to want to create new accounts once they get banned, that's the way to.
Is it easier for people to sign up for Discuss now? I remember when, way back when I was a blogger and I kind of experimented with Discuss some. It was pretty clunky. It was really hard for people to sign up. They kind of had to agree to be in the WordPress kind of realm and everything. Is Discuss now much easier for people to sign up?
I think it's fairly easy. I'm not overly technically savvy, and I was able to get it to work.
Yeah.
There were some couple hiccups along the way that I think they've addressed since then.
Okay.
Just one more thing about that. So having worked with both in the past, one interesting thing about Discuss is that you can be anonymous. So you can sign in with your social media account, which could be completely fake. Facebook, even though you can have a fake account, tends to encourage your actual identity. So for a smaller, so for a smaller community news site, when things are anonymous, things can get nasty. It's either good or bad depending on how you look at the page views, because it can be really bad, but your page views are through the roof. Or it can be really bad, and you're like, this isn't the kind of community I'm trying to grow. Facebook, because because it encourages showing your actual identity, you tend to build a community. And just Red Bank Green, I don't know where John Ward is, but I think he's going to be at line. He's used Facebook for 5 years, and it's some of the same people. You get to know people within the town, especially anybody running the site in a small town. You get to know people. It really kind of draws people together. But some markets won't have it. Some people don't want that as their identity. So it really depends on what people will put up with.
I'm from Oklahoma, in the middle of Trumpville, and so real identities were what I wanted.
Right.
If somebody's going to get on there and flame somebody, I want them to, I want the real name.
Right. Exactly.
And that's it. We've really that's been a good engagement platform.
Mm-hmm.
So to move on to the next, not to dwell on comments too much, but to move on and try to get through this. SurveyMonkey we use for reader surveys. We do an annual reader survey, which kind of informs how the direction we're going to go. Sometimes we do surveys for potential new features for editorial direction. We also do an advertiser survey, so you can just as well put that on the sales side, but most of its utility for us is on the reader side. And then for embedded polls that are easy to embed through WordPress, we use Polldad, which is free. On the sales side, so Asana, as I mentioned, we use it we have a separation between our sales side and between the sales people and operations people. So the sales people make the sale and then hand it off to the operations people to get the, I say people, it's really one person, but bear with me. Sales hands it off to operations. Operations then has to go through a series of things, getting the ads from the client, or doing a needs analysis if we're going to design the ads for them, then plugging it in, sending stats, and doing a number of things. Asana allows us to kind of keep track of that and stay organized and not get overwhelmed. Google DFP is our primary ad server. It's the front end that users see it. The ads are served through DFP. DFP is free, but it's very limited in terms of you're just mostly showing image ads, and the reporting isn't very good. For an ad server that has a lot better reporting and a lot better options in terms of ads, we use BroadStreet. So we run BroadStreet through DFP. Some people use BroadStreet as their primary server, but Kenny is the creator of BroadStreet, so we can talk a little bit more about what it is.
Right, yeah. that BroadStreet is an alternative or a plugin to Google DFP. So Google DFP, I will not, put down. It's great for what it does, but it doesn't necessarily cater to the needs of anybody who has a direct sales team, right? So it's like you upload the creatives, you run them, that's about what they do. That's really what it does. And then at the end of the campaign, you go and get the numbers, and even that's kind of a pain. So BroadStreet, what we say is that we want to help our clients impress their clients. So deliver something to your advertising prospects that's going to impress them, get a conversation started, get them to say yes. All right, most ad campaigns that are run through Google DFP, they're going to get a pretty dismal click-through rate. If you're running static banner ads, they generally don't perform. If you're lucky, you get like a 0.05 or 0.06 click-through rate. BroadStreet, we have some more interesting creatives. I won't go into it, but you get something closer to like a 0.25, 0.3% click-through rate, which is actually like 5 times higher. And at the end of it, we have reporting. So it's automated. Actually, one of the best features about the reporting was actually recommended by Scott a few years ago, which is that not only we do the regular statistics that Google DFP does, but we'll show where in the world or where in your area some of that engagement with the ad or the creative actually came from. So it's really, BroadStreet is really just an ad platform built for direct sales. Local publishers, city magazines, those are really exclusively the kinds of customers that we work with. Where Google DFP, they're catering to everybody, ad networks. BroadStreet, we're really working with, we're focusing on local news publishers.
And to add to that, DFP is free, but very few of you, I couldn't, would be able to actually get it on the site and make it work. You're going to have to pay somebody to do that. There's no support.
The biggest trouble with Google DFP is that your support is basically www.google.com. That's Google it. So that if you want to figure it out, that's what you have to do. So we've had some customers have no idea what else we do. They just come to us for the support and they figure out the other stuff afterward. But a big part of it is that Google doesn't really support its customers. You don't want to have to post to a forum and keep checking back to figure out the answer to your problem.
And Kenny did not pay me to be here or say this, but I've been with Kenny for many years, and my BroadStreet ads are getting 0.1, 0.2, 0.3% click-through rates, and that's because I'm so deep in it. I've done a lot of BroadStreet on my site, and I've integrated a lot of their tools, but that's paid off. A liberal advertising policy and display policy paid off for our clients.
Right. The nice thing about it is that, especially working with the local publishers, that almost anybody here is pretty entrepreneurial. So you're early adopters, you have like good ideas about what you want, and then so a lot of people like Uriah, Scott have and Kelly have fed ideas into BroadStreet and said this is something I think could really work, and it turns out it works for a lot of other people on BroadStreet. So it's kind of like we have this continuous loop where we listen to our customers and build the stuff, which is I don't know if anybody has confidence that Google DFP is going to implement a feature request, but that's what we do. So that's why I think it's kind of morphed into something that is really suited to the needs of anybody running the hyperlocal.
I would just very quickly add that as a developer, I even find it hard to do advanced features with DFP, and troubleshooting can be a nightmare. And something like BroadStreet is very easy to use alternative for just running day-to-day on your own as a publisher, or for anyone that is support, whether it's your developer, ad salesperson, or whatever.
One time I had a problem with DFP, and I luckily figured out that my wife's friend's husband was a developer on the DFP team in New York City, and I had to beg him to please tell me, figure this out for me, because nobody was helping, and they sort of got it to work. I've never had problems with BroadStreet, but if I did, I could just email Kenny. So that's a better option. All right, so moving on, Microsoft Office 360 is another just Microsoft Office where you pay monthly per user, which is pretty nice. We use Office mostly to receive sponsored content via Word and do some Excel magic for business functions when necessary. So we could spend a lot of time talking about CRMs, customer relationship managers. These are the tools that you use for your sales force to keep track of customers and sales and the sales pipeline. I will say briefly that I really like Pipedrive. It's very visual, it's very easy to use, it's one of the less expensive options, and they have some good integrations with other apps like Slack that we actually use. Zapier is a tool for connecting different services and different apps that you might have. The function we use for this is whenever someone is entered as a client as a new potential customer in Pipedrive, their email address then gets shipped off to MailChimp via Zapier to a potential customer list that then gets a monthly, like, Local News Now customer email. So there are infinite ways you can use Zapier to connect different things. That's one of the ways we use it. ClickMeter is basically a paid version of Bitly. Bitly being the link shortener. ClickMeter allows you to track how many people have clicked on any given link. We use this for our sponsored content to be able to present our advertisers with performance reports. It is not as cheap as I think it should be, but it's worth its weight in gold because one of our best-selling things we figured out worked really well. We didn't know if it was really working. We relied on the client to tell us until we implemented ClickMeter links, and then we saw we were getting like 1,000 clicks a week on it. And after that, we could charge more money and sell it on our other sites.
What was the feature on that helped you use the track? Was it sponsored content or display?
It was sponsored real estate content.
It was at the Just Listed?
Yeah.
So they had addresses in there that the readers could click on, and once they started realizing they had thousands of clicks on these addresses, which were going directly to the clients.
Because basically.
I totally stole that idea.
Because I randomly tried this out and figured out how successful it was, it's now earning us tens of thousands of dollars a year. So it's probably worth it.
Awesome.
So do you do that for all your sponsors, or do sponsors pay more for that service?
We are now doing it for most of our sponsors. It somewhat depends on the nature of the content and whether tracking clicks on it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But we're doing it for almost all of them, and we do it as a way to kind of tell customers how successful their thing is. We don't charge them for it.
What's the main difference between that and BitLY? Because BitLY it tracks things too.
Sure. So let's say you use your own URL.
Okay.
So it's like the t.arrownow.com. It has some more advanced features. Billing and for tracking our books, we use QuickBooks. I'm sure a lot of people here are familiar with it. We use the online version of it, and we very much like their fact that it's very easy for customers to make credit card payments on their invoices. I would say we've been pushing credit card payments as much as we can because then you get paid quicker. So QuickBooks is great. We pay them a fair amount of money, but it's worth it. Communications, we're at the home stretch here. Slack is a fancy, trendy, basically instant messenger type solution for teams. We like it because we have team members in different places, and we can communicate very easily and send animated GIFs and make each other laugh when we're not being productive. It also has great integration. So with Pipedrive, there's a Slack integration. So whenever any of our commission-only salespeople add a new potential deal, there is a channel in Slack that gets an alert that deal has been created, and I like being able to see that. And I also like being able to see when deals are won, which is another thing we use that for. Google Apps, we use it primarily for email. We have two different phone systems for no apparent reason. We use Vonage and RingCentral. Believe it or not, we still have a fax machine that we run through the Vonage phone number, and we still have to use it. It astounds me every time I have to use the fax machine, but there are just some clients and a certain federal government that has certain functions that need to be done via fax still. And then finally, Verizon Wireless is if you have, I think it's 5 or 6 lines or more, you can get on a business plan through them and get a discount and get some deals. We do that because I have my phone on it, and I also have mobile hotspots. So for our reporters, when they go out in the field and they report on something, our brand is now, local news now, and so we want to get stories out as soon as possible. I don't want our reporters to have to wait to connect to Starbucks Wi-Fi. So they have mobile hotspots that they bring with them and can report from the field and get stories up. So if there's something on fire, we can have photos in half an hour. And that's our list. I think, Kelly, you're going to tell us about some of the different things you do.
Yep, and while I'm pulling that up, why don't you talk about what you do? David Walsh from Walsh Creative.
And Scott, question. So you mentioned in the beginning that you spend about $1,000 a month for Google Cloud, right?
Yes.
And then you have the list, and thank you for sharing that with all the other technology stack, right?
Yes.
If you put a number on the whole stack, what would that be?
I think last time I checked, it was around $2,500.
$2,500 a month.
Yeah.
Thank you.
David?
The Scott's tech stack list was great. I don't disagree with any piece of it. And some of the things like the Google Cloud hosting, that's great. You can find alternatives like WP Engine now just moved all of their servers to be backed by Google Cloud and AWS. So you can find like share plans. If you're more of a startup publisher, you don't have $1,000 a month hosting budget. They have alternatives for $29 a month, $99 a month, $249 a month, all the way up to custom quoted enterprise plans. So you can have a lot of the same advantages on a cheaper plan. And what I do for the Q&A portion is I'm a WordPress developer, so we work with publishers all over U.S., big and small, city and regional magazine publishers, and we manage basically their tech stack. So we manage their WordPress sites, all the technical troubleshooting. We work with the ad servers. We always recommend Broad Street, so I won't even mention anyone else. And we'll troubleshoot hosting. We also set up automated email newsletters through MailChimp, RSS campaigns. So I'm not saying any of this as a sales pitch. I'm saying for any of the Q&A portion, anything you have on the tech stacks, feel free to ask me. I'd rather answer your questions than just keep talking about stuff you don't want to hear about.
So I, just full disclosure, I use Walsh Creative for how long? Yeah, he helps me with MailChimp and everything. And then Broad Street, and I went from DFP to Broad Street. When I finally got on WordPress, I could use Broad Street. So I just wanted to, I've got a list like of 15 things here that I use, but how many of you use a CRM? Come on, you guys. All right, so there's a lot of free CRMs. Does Pipedrive cost money?
Yep.
Okay.
$12 a user a month.
How much?
$12 a user.
$12 a user a month. Okay. So Zoho.com, I was on before I went to Infusionsoft. Zoho has a free version that's very usable. And if you have all your customers on a spreadsheet, you can actually import them into Zoho and not lose data that you have. We started with CRMs with Salesforce, realized it was ridiculously expensive for us. We're way too small a business to do that. For what I get for $250 a month for 8 users, I would pay $2,500 a month on Salesforce. So that's a really big difference, and you can find affordable things. But Zoho is free, and that's where I started. And so I really recommend it. The only reason I left was because we wanted some more functionality on the email marketing, and Infusionsoft has that built in. So let's see. So you have your customers in here. You have all of the necessary information. The one thing I recommend is being able to putting your contracting in. You can put the contract into Zoho or into Infusionsoft or Salesforce and build the contracts in your CRM, so everything's together. All the customers' information, all of the contracts. Let's see if I can get. And it's just, and you can put your products in. And so here's everything that Eddie bought, and when you preview it, here is the contract and all of the legalese agreement that my lawyer approved. And so I know that it's there. Everything's where I can find it. If my sales rep's out of town, I still know, where that contract is and how.
And this is Zoho?
No, this is Infusionsoft, but Zoho does the same thing. I just can't show you Zoho because I'm not in it anymore. The other thing that is really important as a business owner is to be checking your own analytics and watching what your, like I can do a monthly sales total, I can do a sales report for any length of time. I can go back and compare last year to this year. What else can I show you? But basically it just gives you some information. So here's all of my different sales reps, the names of the customer, the name of the company, and how much sales are and when it was closed. And I run this every Monday, and I put it in front of the whole sales team. Hey guys, we still got $27,000 this month to sell, and it's just a real good accountability for everybody to be chipping in and paying attention. So Scott said he uses Microsoft 360. I use Google Suite. It's not that expensive. I think it's $5 a user per month. I love it. So we have all these different chats going on, and you can see the chat over on the right. Our entire editorial team is on here, and they're talking to the editor, and at night they're talking to the assistant editor or the night editor, and I can see what's going on all the time without me having to be part of the conversation. And if I see them doing something or saying, I don't think we need to report on that, I can say, oh, yes, we do, or whatever. But it's, we're talking about Marsha Blackburn, probably don't think they did say anything bad. Anyway, so I can see what Mark's doing. I know if he needs my help. When Mark's out of town, I jump in and I play editor. And it's just a really good accountability piece. Again, I'm big about accountability, but it's the other reporters are seeing what the other reporter is doing. They're seeing if they're like 3 stories ahead of them that day, and it creates an atmosphere of a little bit of competition, which I like for the sales side and on the editorial side. But I also have private conversations with sales reps. I'm reminding Rebecca to fill out her timesheet, so it's how we communicate. It's just kind of like Slack. But there's a lot of other tools in here. As an admin, I can get passwords changed, or I can add the people in. So I have full control because I'm the super admin. And so, the other thing I wanted to show you, sorry. And I probably won't even talk about all the other stuff because I just really wanted to show you guys this. So we have our ad calendar. We track all of our inventory, and the sales reps can come here. They can be sitting in the middle of a sales meeting, and they can pull up Brentwood homepage, and they can see that, yes, the top feature banner is open in January through February, but it's just all of our inventory on all of our sites, and it's at their fingertips when they're trying to make a close. And then the other thing, real quick, sorry, is we have our master budget on here. Oh, here it is. All the reporters are responsible for putting all of their stuff in, and we have our system, and so every Monday by 8:30, they're supposed to have all their stories in that they know of for the week, and so we can see where the gaps are, we can see where the meetings are, how much time we're going to need to allot for a night editor, all of that stuff. When the editor finishes editing the story and it's published, then he strikes through it, so the reporter knows that it's done, and they can go and do the Hootsuite or all the social. So we built all of these things out. I'd be glad to share them with you. If you want to use this, I can just copy and paste it, or I can share it with you so that you can do that. So anyway, I love Google Suite. I think it's cool. Yeah, we use QuickBooks Online, but we also use Bill.com, which allows for automation and will automatically bill somebody's credit card. And that's the only reason I'm using Bill.com, is because it will do that. On the 5th, it runs these credit cards, and on the 15th, it runs these credit cards, and I know that money's coming without me having to run after it. We do also have the feature that they can click on it and pay with credit card if they're not on automatic credit card billing. But I love WordPress, and because we have multiple sites for any of you who do, there's a WordPress hub that you can build, and that's kind of one of the things that we had to grow into, but we can put a story in the hub and it'll go to all 7 of our sites, or we can tell it to go to 2. We can pick the categories that it goes into. But so if you ever do expand, that's an option. It's tricky and it does drive David Walsh crazy sometimes, but it works.
Post the author on every post you say.
Yeah. We had a little glitch where David became the author of all stories. Little glitch.
On Infusionsoft and Piperdrive, does it, so I saw you do your invoices through Infusionsoft. Do either one of those integrate into QuickBooks, or do you have to like recreate the invoices in your QuickBooks?
No, we create them in QuickBooks.
You can use Zapier to do things back and forth, but they don't natively integrate.
So Kelly, I'm sorry. I'm glad you brought up the recurring revenue piece, because as we redesigned our rate card, instead of giving discounts for a length of time, we give discounts for recurring sign-up for recurring revenue. So you're going to save 10%. For your credit card and on a specific bill on that other three things on how we have to sell it.
Yeah. And there are, and I just because it really helped me when we were starting and we had this much money, like none, we were on a platform that came like, it was kind of, you just picked all the different modules you wanted to use, and it was it was called Bondware, and they're out in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and they were great to me. And if WordPress intimidates you, and you know, you just want something that kind of has it all there, there's some vendors here that have that, and then Bondware was great to me, and they're really easy for a startup. But the differences in being able to use the plugins and being able to use BroadStreet, and WordPress just opened a whole new world. So I recommend that, but if that intimidates you, those other news publishing softwares and platforms work. And Richland Source uses one.
Okay. So when you went from Bondware to WordPress, how was the transition?
Well, we had customized a hub in Bondware, and that was the biggest transition, was getting a WordPress hub to work, because there's not one out there that works. You have to make it. You have to force it. So that was probably and with Bondware I had my ad manager in there, which was not great, but it worked. And I had my newsletter module, and everything was integrated. And I had to go to MailChimp. So now I'm on another platform. And so instead of everything being in one place, now I have BroadStreet, WordPress Hub, several. I had to go to 5 different platforms to get what I got on Bondware. But Bondware was a little antiquated, and it couldn't do everything that we needed to be able to do, especially for advertisers and sponsored content and all that.
There's if you're on like a closed CMS system, or any kind of, if you're on Bondware, or there's there's Metro Publisher, Bookable, Kenny could probably name a ton of them. Town News. So some of them will play nicely if you want to leave and give you what's called like an SQL database dump, and you can convert that to WordPress, and it's it can be, I'll call it an easy process, but you're gonna need some help. But also they can lock you up on there, and then it becomes a lot harder because you have to get like an XML feed and map it, and you get raw data. So you definitely want to look into various ones. Of course, I want people being on WordPress. I own a WordPress development company. That's how I pay my bills. But I'm not totally against those other systems. You just want to really look into them, because I've had people that want to get on WordPress that get really jammed up. And we had one site where we had to totally outsource to a data company that had to literally copy and paste every single post they did for like 7 years. years, which you can imagine was not cheap or easy. So,
There's like a general rule in software where if you try and do a lot of things, you're probably going to suck at all of them. You know, so most proprietary CMSs, like, they get the publishing part right, but then it's like, you know, the ad serving part of it becomes something that they really don't want to put a lot of focus on. So you say, oh, you know, can we have this feature? And they're like, it's not really the core of what we do, so you never really get it. Or the newsletter part of it, you know, you hear someone can do something with MailChimp, and you want it, and you make the suggestion to the company, and like, you know, they can't do that either. So, you know, you end up really being held back as the rest of the internet moves on in terms of its capabilities, in terms of what you can do. And WordPress has the extendability. It's got plugins. There's a whole army of people developing all these awesome features for WordPress. You don't have to go begging your CMS company to implement them for you.
and if you want a feature that doesn't exist out of the 40, 50,000 plugins in the WordPress repository, you can like hire someone to just build you a plugin. And that could be as simple as going to Upwork.com and finding someone to outsource plugin development to. So that's the beauty of it. You have complete freedom.
I wanted to show you guys this, like Eleanor was talking, if any of y'all were in that earlier. So this is the reason I went with Infusionsoft, because you can build these email campaigns. The sales reps can go in and assign a tag to all of the people that are football prospects or all of the people that are camp guide prospects, and you build this existing list, and then you have this if then then that. So this is the email that they get, and if they click through, then we set up the task for the sales rep, and they fill out the landing page. Something else happens. If they don't, then they get the follow-up email, and then the follow-up email, and it creates. It's just a if this then that scenario, and it did take me some time to learn how to do this, but we get usually in the first email we usually get about 10 people just go on, fill out the form, and they're signed up for football, and the sales rep didn't have to do anything except just go say, hey, thanks, you know, and so we've trained our customers to respond in that way after 3 or 4 years too. So it's a cool feature. You do have to be a little techie to use it.
I don't know if they still offer it, but I actually took a course through Infusionsoft on how to use that.
Yeah.
That program.
Yeah, they have all kinds of videos if you have the patience and you're good at learning in that way. But
I took like a one-on-one like training.
Yeah, that's what we hired somebody to come in and train us. Yeah. It just took a day. It wasn't too bad.
I have a question for David, actually. I was wondering if you could speak on Gutenberg and how or when that would be implemented. If you have any thoughts?
I don't know what that is.
I heard that WordPress was changing their backend, and that was what they're calling the new format for inputting. Yoast posted their response to it, and they had some questions and concerns because if WordPress rolled it out without addressing some of that, then like all the CEO functions through Yoast would be gone. And I didn't know if you had heard about that or had thoughts on that.
No.
Better get reading.
I'll read up on it. I followed a Yoast blog too, so I'll look into it.
Thanks.
Do you know anything?
I have heard of it. I have no idea about it. So I haven't been added to WordPress.
I heard it. I saw that as well, but I don't know what Gutenberg is or why.
Is that just the name of their latest update? Because they name every update like 4.8.2, what we call something.
I think so. It just seemed like it was pretty extreme for what it is, and it seemed like, according to the article I read, that it was on the accelerated track, but it seemed a little reckless.
So, but it would be interesting though, because there's like over 1 million sites using Yoast SEO. Yoast also has Yoast SEO News, which will, for everyone here, that's a good one to add to the tech list, is it'll get you added to Google News and tell you what you need to do to your site to get indexed and found in Google News. But, you know, to release an update that would cramp up millions of sites, we'll see.
I think that's where I heard about it. Like when I went into one of my sites in the back, I got a notification from Yoast. I think that's how I knew about it.
Sorry, what is Yoast?
Yoast is a WordPress plugin, Yoast SEO, and it's free. They have a premium version, which is pretty inexpensive. I don't know the exact price, but it's definitely, I would say, under $100 a year or $100 forever or something. And what it'll do, it's really good for publishers to use because you can set like focus keyword on a post. You can also set an SEO title, a meta description, edit the snippets that show up in a Google News or in Google, and you can actually optimize your posts. And whoever's writing those or editing those can do it in real time. It's very easy, the criteria that it asks for, and it gives you a green, amber, red light. And you just follow those, and over time you'll improve your organic SEO reach. SEO, if you don't know, search engine optimization.
Do you recommend using a third party to host photos, other rich media, and serving that up on your website to improve load time?
Yeah, it depends how big your site is and who's hosting. If you're using like shared hosts, like a Bluehost, a GoDaddy, or something that's
I'm using
like
WP.
okay, so first, if you're using one of those like $5-6 a month hosts, you're gonna have problems. You need to get off it. It's not even just the images. WP Engine has just get off it. WP Engine has a proprietary system that they created called LargeFS, Large File Share, Large File System, and it's backed by AWS, Amazon Web Services, S3, and you can actually, for free, set up to offload everything to S3. That's what Kelly does on her site. She probably doesn't know that, but I set it up for her.
I did too.
And it's free to set up and run, and they eventually charge you for data transfer, but it's so cheap. Kelly's bill 1 month was like 24 cents. So but yeah, you should do that because then it'll lower your overall disk space. And then further than that, you can use Cloudflare, which Scott spoke about, and that'll cache your images and give you another layer of caching. You can also use something called WP Smush, which will optimize images as you upload them and make them smaller. That's a huge problem with a news site is on your homepage you feature 20 posts and each one has a featured image that's a half meg, and now you have a 10 meg homepage and your site loads slow.
We use a plugin called Insanity.
Yeah.
That just sets a maximum resolution for images uploaded to WordPress. So I implement that because our reporters would upload 2 meg files. There's no need to have 2 meg file, and it slows down your download. So that'll just shrink it right down automatically. You don't have to do anything.
What's the pricing on it?
Free.
Yeah, so that's much better in WP Smush because WP Smush is $35 a month. So don't use that.
Insanity. I am sanity.
That's free. That's awesome.
Insanity. It's awesome.
At the
So
very
when you do that, you don't see a drop in quality?
Well, you get to set what the resolution is, but
Yeah, you have to-
your users aren't seeing resolution much higher than, we set it as a maximum width of 1024 pixels. Your users aren't seeing much more resolution than that unless they're reading on some sort of crazy 4K monitor.
Do you first edit them? Because you talked about using Creative Suite. Do you first edit them there and then smush them? Or?
Most of the times, we just take them right off. Most of the times, we're taking photos with an iPhone, we're airdropping it to the laptop, and then just uploading it directly to WordPress, and it gets smushed down, and then it's like a 100K file, and we don't have to do much of anything to do it.
And that's great because with publishers, often they're complaining about loading times, and that is one of the biggest culprits is large images on the homepage.
So we got a question. She's been
Yeah.
going like this.
Sorry, I'm short. No, so you don't have to shrink your photos first, this will do it for you? Because
Yep.
I do online photography and I tend to upload really large photo galleries. People kind of count on seeing those, especially when it's, a very visual event that I've been reporting on. But our salespeople actually yell at me because it does slow down the loading and but I feel like if I don't have those photos, people won't look, and they want me to put them on Flickr, but I don't want to do that because then it takes people off the site. So this takes care of that kind of a problem.
Absolutely.
The one thing to look out for is that you need the maximum file upload size on your server. That might be a setting you have to set. Sometimes it's set as low as 2 megs. We set it at 10 megs so that you can upload any old file and it's going to shrink it down to a nice usable image.
Awesome.
And you can Google how to change that upload size pretty
Yeah.
easily.
Email David. He'll fix it for you.
I'll send you Scott's
You can
email.
upload large files, it's just, they take up a lot of space.
Oh yeah, and you through Insanity.
It's much running now.
Through Insanity, you can go back and you can shrink down existing images. So if your server's all cluttered up with huge, unnecessarily large files, it'll go back and batch resize them.
One note I wanted to make is that at the very minimum, you definitely want to use something like a CDN, like Cloudflare. And the reason is because not only is the image serving completely offloaded from your server, so it kind of sits in front of your server and serves that image off of Cloudflare servers, which is optimized for actually image delivery. But the other thing it'll do is it'll send headers to a user's browser and say, don't even bother asking for this image again, just store it in your cache. So that way the request never has to be made again. So even if you have like, really successful image compression, you have 250 kilobyte image, you still don't even have to download that every time. The user downloads it once and it's just reused over and over. So you save the request altogether if you just use Cloudflare. But then using, the image compression for the initial hit is a great idea too.
One other thing on that, everyone should go talk to Matt DiRienzo, because I believe if you're a Lime member, they have some kind of deal with Cloudflare now that you can get a free premium account. Uriah, do you know anything about that? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They only do it through one of our sites. But yeah.
But
free
that's
for their top tier.
and it's expensive. Cloudflare's top tier is like $5,000 a month. So I don't know if it's that one, but any free thing from Cloudflare is good.
Yeah.
We definitely need to look into that.
Yeah. John, did you have a question?
Just thinking.
Okay.
All right. Well, the bar is opening in 4 minutes.
We don't want to stand between you
We're
and
more than happy to
alcohol.
answer your questions, but I think we'll adjourn everybody else who wants to get a drink.
Yeah, thanks, guys.